I received a comment from Orson Lynn 2282. Hey, can we do a top 5 must-have Four Horsemen figures? I recently got into this line, and while loving it, the price is a bit steep for me, and I need to be selective. So this comment, plus others like it, inspired me to make this video. I would like to acknowledge that getting into Mythic Legions can be super overwhelming. There are so many figures. It's been going on for a decade now. There's just so much out there, and it can be so overwhelming just trying to be like, where do I start? Now, this video is my personal recommendations. I would also encourage other Legions collectors to post their lists in the comments below so that it's not just my recommendations that the newcomers are seeing, but the recommendations of others. So we can, as a community, help each other out here by throwing out some recommendations as to what you would say, hey, new collector, you got to get this figure or these 5. You got to get them. They are key characters, or this grouping is going to be very representative of the variety in the line, or something might represent like a really good value, or any like thing you think that would be appealing to a newcomer as like, here's how to check out this line. Anyway, I will say that a character like Scapular the Crypt Breaker would probably be pretty close to the top of my list if he were available right now, but he's really not. The original Scapular is an older figure. It's harder to find. It's going to cost you over $100 to get that figure. By the way, Jeremy Gerard of Four Horsemen Studios was kind enough to send me some photos over, a little teaser of the Mythic Legions first 10 years coffee table action figure guide of the first 10 years of Mythic Legions. And these photos of Scapular, the Scapular 1, plus my number 5 figure on the list, those photos, this is like kind of the first time we're ever seeing these publicly. And I want to say thank you to Jeremy for allowing me to share those in my video. And you all need to go check out that book. If you're watching this video around the time of publication, that book's available on the Store Horseman site. If you're watching this a little bit later, you could probably find it from some retailers. And the version 2 is a figure that is not out yet, and it's not going to be out for quite some time, probably towards the end of 2025. So, maybe later I'll refresh this list and I'll add him to the list. But for now, it's like, here's stuff you can get now, or stuff that's like coming out like very, very soon. So that counts for Scapular. Atlas would be like another one that I could potentially put on the list like that, but they're just not available. So I'm not going blanket, these are the best 5 figures. This is more like, here's what I recommend. If you're just starting and you're looking for stuff that's available now, go out and get these 5 releases. Okay, number 5. In my opinion, you gotta have a green guy in your collection, right? You gotta have an orc or a goblin. I personally lean towards goblins, and I think even though Snagg isn't my all-time favorite goblin, that would go to Noobnik, because Snagg is so iconic, and because Snagg was recently reissued, it's fairly easy to find Snagg out there. Now, it's not at retail, but you could, put an offer up in the Mythic Legions Cabal Facebook group or some other collector group and say, hey, in search of Snagg for like $60 or $70, and somebody would probably have one for you out there. And that's not too much more than the $50 retail that it would have been. So I would say Snagg is, in my opinion, one of the best options right now for goblins. If you want to go full on budget right now, Swig is a great option, because Swig is actually in stock on fourhorsemen.com right now. And you could just go out. I mean, right now, as of late January 2025, who knows when you're watching this video, but right now, as in that time. So there's Swig. And then there's also, in terms of value, the Goblin 2-pack, but it's not out yet. It's a little ways off. And again, I want to try to avoid things that are like super far off in the distant future. So, my number 5, I think Snagg is an absolute no-brainer. This figure will eventually dry up again, and it'll be back up to whatever it was. It was probably 150 before. So this figure is awesome, and it's, the supply's high right now. At number 4, I have a character that is maybe not a super central character to the storyline necessarily, but she represents something that I think is very important to the world, which is magic use, wizard type stuff, right? Like spellcaster type stuff. And it brings in the female 2.0 body, and it brings in some excellent cloth goods, some of the best cloth goods in the whole line. So this is Thraice Wraithhailer, and I think that between the color scheme and the great like upper leather torso part, like that is a relatively newer part that came on Artemis 2, like just like the stitching on the cloth goods and the shine of the cape and the magic effect and everything about this character and the beauty of the sculpt and the face. This is just like an absolute shelf presence kind of figure that I think is going to bring that variety, even though she's maybe not like a core super main character. So Thraice Wraithhailer, you cannot go wrong with that one for number 4. Okay, number 3, you gotta have the new skeleton body in your collection. If you looked at any of the top 10 action figures of 2024 lists, a lot of them had the skeleton on it, even beyond just Mythic Legions lists. Like the skeleton is awesome. It's a brand new body from top to bottom. It's sort of like the future of skeletons here in Mythic Legions. Now, the one that was released last year, the Skeleton Legion Builder 2, that's become a little bit harder to find at this point. It was a bit of a surprise drop. It sold out. It's going to be pricey because that figure was like, I want to say it was $27, $26, something like that when it was in stock. So it was a super deal. But when you look at the aftermarket and it's like 60, 70 bucks, I'd say pass on that. And instead grab perhaps the 4-pack. If you want like absolute value and you want skeletons, the 4-pack, I know you're spending $100, so it's more money, so your budget might not allow, but that 4-pack is dropping. As of this video, it's dropping very soon. It was already on the water weeks before this video was published. So that 4-pack. But if you don't want to go that heavy and, you know, again, you're just getting into it, do I really need 4 skeletons? Then I would say even sooner than that coming on the water is Maxxos the Harvester. Now, this is a complete figure. It's an awesome character. It's kind of core to the Necronominous storyline. It's got that base skeleton body. It's also a Grim Reaper. It's got some crazy overlay armor pieces, some cool accessories. Like this is the one that I would say, you know, if you don't want to go aftermarket for the skeleton 2 and you don't want to buy 4 skeletons, then grab this. And these are hitting soon. Like these are actually within weeks of this video, people will start to have Maxxos in hand. Okay, next up, at some point on this list, I really wanted to make sure we had a variety of scales in the different sized figures that you can get with Mythic Legions. So I contemplated the horse, but it's like a horse, I don't know, like if in your first 5 you really would want a horse necessarily. I mean, it would be cool, but I think you can get a little more representation of like what Legions is about without the horse. The horses are phenomenal. If you love horses, by all means, get a horse. I contemplated trolls. Those are a little clunky. They're a little tough. They don't really represent the line perfectly. They're more like not statues, but almost more like vinyl figures or something. And then the brute scale, those aren't quite dialed in yet. I'm waiting for like another brute release to really be nice and tight and because they can be a little finicky and loose, and some of the legs kind of like pop off easy. So again, awesome figures, but like they're just not quite dialed in enough for me to say, hey, that should be your first purchase. So I went with ogre scale, and at number 2, I've placed Aragorr the Drago Seer. This is, like I said, a big ogre scale figure that's going to have absolute presence on your shelf. Unlike the previous ogres and half giants and stuff, this new body has even more articulation up in that torso especially, and even up in the head and the neck and stuff. There's just a lot to love about the figure. This has one of the most beautiful paint jobs in the entire line. It's got some really cool contrasting like really old aged weathered armor that contrasts that very alive kind of magical skin there, that very like bright and shiny and metallic kind of like It's got that that color shift kind of thing going on there. So yeah, this figure is fantastic, and they've got a few other of the Drago Seers out there. But I think right now Aragorr is still the best one of those, and that's why Aragorr is the number 2. I think you gotta have Aragorr. It's just such a killer figure. And the number 1 Mythic Legions item that I think everybody should have, if you were to only buy one Mythic Legions thing, it would be the Attila and Gorgo 2-pack. Now, the crazy thing about this set is it came out years ago, but it is still available even on eBay, even on the aftermarket. It is still available for $100, which was the pre-order, the direct pre-order price was $100. It's $150 retail, and you can get it right now for $100. And this really does represent so much that is awesome about Mythic Legions. It's got 2 of the main characters, a good guy, a bad guy. It's got a lot of really good cloth goods going on. It's got some of the newer sculpture and weapons and some unique stuff and swap out heads on Attila and just a whole bunch of just awesomeness in this one set. It is like if there were a starter set for Mythic Legions, this 2-pack would be it. It would be like, get that first. And the fact that it is still only $100 on the aftermarket blows my mind, and it's kind of awesome because it just makes entry into Mythic Legions so easy. And I know $100, it's a lot of money. And when you think about action figures, but these Mythic Legions figures, their retail price is $50 each. So to have these like characters from the original wave, right? Like the original Mythic Legions core characters out there for retail price right now is just absolutely amazing. And I say this should be your first purchase. It's going to give you a great representation of that knight body. I know probably people were like, where are the knights on this list? Here they are. This is the knight body. It's not the newer knight articulation, but this list isn't really about like the most advancements in the figures. This list very heavily takes into consideration the characters, and so for that reason, Gorgo and Attila, they've got to be on. They've got to be there. And then I would say, like, in the future, another pair that would be on this list would be Scapular and Atlas. Like, there are just certain characters that are super main to it, and these two are in one set, $100, just like a no-brainer kind of thing. Anyway, that's my list. I thank you for watching it. And again, help the newcomers out by putting your top 5. And until next time, may the force be with you.